Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to Lock Talk San Antonio. My name is Thomas Bingham, joined alongside by Beyer and Producer Josh. We are the voices for sports talk in the San Antonio Hill Country. We're excited to be back. Obviously, on Wednesdays, we're going to take a look at the Austin San Antonio sports scene. It's a big week, and a lot of it's basketball related, and we're going to have to take a look at the area teams that are competing at this weekend's UIL State Girls Basketball Final Four. We'll also let you know how area teams did at TAPPS Boys and Girls State Basketball Final Four. And then we'll let you know how the boys are doing. They are playing. There are 3 regional playoff games this week, and so they got a little bit of time before they make it to the Alamodome next week, and we'll give you an update on that. But let's start with the girls, because I was at this really exciting and somewhat surprising outcome.
Which game were you
at? Saturday. I was at the UIL 6A Region 4 final between Westlake and Converse Judson. And
what a heartbreaker for Westlake.
It was a true heartbreaker for the Chaps, and especially that senior class. And, Texas commit Shay Hawley and Texas State commit Presley Bennett. And, they were up big going into the final quarter, and they were really kind of controlling the momentum against Converse Judson. And then Converse Judson, like they had the last 3 years, or the 3 years before this season, found a way to win their regional championship. And, man, it was a wild game, and it took some heroic performances to pull that out late. I mean, they were down 10 going in the final quarter.
I was just going to say that with 5 minutes left, I think the score with 5 minutes left was 43-33, if I'm not mistaken. What was it like? What was the atmosphere in that arena like? Just in terms of the student section going on, and because that had to be some sort of electricity to help drive that comeback.
Well, the interesting thing is, you're in the building, and it seemed like Westlake should find a way to pull this out, but there was actually, I got this weird message in my head going to that final quarter, and I'm like, Judson's not done. And at that point, I had zero defense to think that. And, props to the Rockets for obviously leaning on their past experience. And, I think going in this contest, most people thought that Westlake, this year's Westlake squad had more talent than Converse Judson. And, a big part of that was, Converse Judson, after they won the state championship last year, lost great players to college basketball. And, yeah, they have a couple players that are still back from that run, but their 1-2 punch graduated from last year. And I thought it was very impressive what the Rockets did.
This is the Rockets' 4th straight regional championship. Yeah, it seems to me the history will show that even when the Rockets lose players like that, a 1-2 punch like they just lost, they reload. And I remember talking about the Rockets team last year, the girls Rockets last year, and they had almost 60. There was a 10-game stretch or something. I have to remember it, but we were talking about it on our show, and they had a 10-game stretch where their field goal percentage in the paint was 60% or just something outlandish. And it looks like, and we did talk about too the younger classes being able to learn from such an experienced upper class, and as it turns out, that's kind of what's happening. Is their culture there is their younger teams are learning from their older teams, and these experiences do nothing but help. And the Chaps should hold their heads high, knowing they're a part of that, because their younger teams. You mentioned Shay Hawley and a couple of the other seniors who's helped shape the Westlake team. They took them far, and that leader, they had one of the better regular season. Now I know that the Westlake boys has just came off another heartbreaking loss. I think that was their best regular season in school history. I think the girls had something very similar. They're 33-7 on the season, and that's a culture thing. So those younger players are learning from those leaders who are going off to these colleges for a reason. And I'd expect to see Westlake back here soon.
Well, the team that kind of led Judson late was Kiera Sanderlin. I mean, 19 of her 30 points came in that final quarter. And the crazy thing is,
incredible.
You know, she just kept attacking. She kept getting to the line. She made 11 free throws in that final quarter. 11 of her 19 fourth quarter points came from the free throw line. And obviously she finished with a game-high 30 points. I mean, she was spectacular. And I'm sure, kind of like what you were saying, she saw those leaders on last year's squad, you know, charge the Rockets up. And I'm sure she took something from one of their pages, you know, and in terms of, you know, whatever they taught her in the locker room and during games and stuff. And the interesting thing is, you know, I had a chance to be there after the game wrapped up, and I got to interview the coach and obviously Sanderlin and Coach Corrales of Judson. You know, the question was asked by the media about, you know, how did this turnaround happen? I mean, you know, you said with 5 minutes to go, and that was true, they were down 10 points.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, a lot of people would have just given up and said, oh, you know, great season, we made it to the regional final, whatever. And Coach Krause was like, are y'all done? And she said her players were like, no. And she's like, show me. And that's exactly what they did. And obviously Sanderlin was the spark plug to that run. And it's going to be interesting to see how they match up in the state Final Four. I mean, they are the defending champs, but they won't be the favorite. I mean, the team that I used to cover, Cypress Creek, they're 40-0 going to the state Final Four. And two of their players have been the two main leaders as freshmen, sophomore, now juniors. And I know 2 years ago they had a heartbreaker, lost in the state semifinals. But that's not the only threat for Judson's race for another state championship. I mean, I know Duncanville's in there, and they're highly ranked in the state. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath in 6A.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. And now you mentioned something interesting. The coach just turned to the bench and asked, are y'all done? That, to me, shows just how much those kids wanted it. Because she put it back on the kids and said, you know, how bad do you want this?
Yeah. And
going back to the culture thing, knowing what the other classes before them have done, they didn't quit. And that's a huge deal to be able to trust your kids that much. Hey, are you done? Nope. We'll go finish it for you.
Well, and the team that Judson has to play is Duncanville on Friday, actually. That's when the 6A semis are. And, you know, Duncanville 38-3. And like I said, number one team in the state. I mean, that's tough.
I believe we'll be talking about.
Yeah, we'll obviously give y'all a pick-em on that on Friday. But, you know, the other teams that are going to be competing from our Austin San Antonio coverage area, another Judson ISD school, San Antonio Veterans Memorial in 5A. They have to take on Mansfield Timberview in the opening round. That's a pretty competitive matchup. If y'all remember, 2 years ago, Veterans Memorial, during their first ever varsity season, made it to the 4A state final, lost that. Now they're in the 5A state final, knocked off Kerrville Tyviews, been the area rep the last couple years at UIL 5A state. In 4A, you know, Fredericksburg, great run for them this year. They're going to their first state semifinal since the mid-'90s.
Wow.
So props to the Battling Billies. In 3A, you got a Schulenburg squad that not only has very talented basketball players, but very talented volleyball players on that roster. A lot of the players that we were featuring at our photo shoot for volleyball when they came are also on this basketball roster. And I know this was a team, as Veterans Memorial was and Judson were, that I mentioned were teams to watch going into the playoffs when I had to preview this on VYPE.com. And then obviously wrapping up our fifth and final area team that has clinched a spot at this weekend's UIL State Girls Basketball Final Four is Mason in 2A, and they have experience from last year playing in this round. So, you know, obviously there's teams that have chances. Some teams have, a clearer path if they want to win a state championship. But it's great to have 5 of the 24 UIL state Final Four participants from our coverage area.
Yeah, and some very narrow misses at that too. Thomas, before we move on, because I do want to ask you about the thriller, the Westlake double overtime thriller that the boys lost. But before we do that, I kind of want to ask you if you wanted to recap the TAPPS state.
Yeah.
Boys and girls real
quick.
We
can definitely go down that. So we start on the boys' side, and these are generally held in the Waco area. A lot of them are played at West High School, which is a little bit north of Waco. That's not the only location, but West is kind of the main one. On the boys' side, a lot of great success from our coverage area. In 6A, Antonian out of San Antonio. They were the 6A state runner-up. Props to the Apaches. Another great season for them. They did beat San Antonio St. Mary's in the state semifinal round. So obviously a San Antonio versus San Antonio battle in the second to last game this season. In 4A, no one in 5A made it to the state Final Four, but in 4A, Schertz, St. John Paul II, Catholic, they made it to the state semifinals. In 3A, Faith Academy Memorial Falls also made it to the state semifinals in 3A. And then you got Austin Waldorf School in 2A. They made it to the championship game. They lost it, but they did make it to that round. When you look at the girls' side, you start with actually some lower classifications. A team that is regularly making deep runs and making appearances at the state Final Four on the girls' basketball side. Texas School for the Deaf lost the championship game. This is truly a phenomenal program, and it's really cool to see this girls' program have so much success over a multi-year span. So props to the Rangers for obviously making another deep run. Just falling short, but obviously a lot to celebrate on that front. Some other teams in 3A girls, another Faith Academy Memorial Falls squad. They made it to the state semis. You also had Austin Waldorf School make it to the state championship game in 2A. And I'm checking to make sure. And then in the lowest classification, 1A, San Antonio Legacy Christian School won the championship. So, and they actually beat Universal City First Baptist Academy in the semifinal round. So, a lot of great success. Obviously, more on the guys' side, and then a lot on the girls' lower side of things. So, it's always great to see both public and private school success in our coverage area.
Yeah, and we live and cover such a great area of tremendous athletes that it's you pretty much pick the sport and pick the finals, and there's a chance that there's somebody representing this area in there. Thomas, I want to move on real quickly to the Westlake game. They fell just short to San Antonio Warren, and I'm surprised, man, because last week, if you were listening last week on our show, I asked the question, is there more of a sure thing in this year's playoffs than Westlake to the state championship? And was I wrong?
I mean, what a phenomenal playoff game, but obviously a heartbreaking loss for the Chaps.
Yeah, double overtime, and you got a good look at the kind of player that KJ Adams is. He's a junior for Westlake, and I think the thing about this season for the Chaps is that it was kind of an unexpected success. I think they expected to lose a few more than just 2 games. But after losing, some really key players like Will Baker last year, and this year they're led by a few juniors, and KJ Adams being one of them. So he has a chance to come back, but you saw him really step up in the times that were needed. He scored 22 of 29 points in the second half, and willed Westlake to, I think, the last 12 points.
Pretty impressive.
Westlake's last 12 points total, so he really wanted it, and you could see that. But yeah, just a surprising loss. Good for Warren, by the way. Let's take the opposite end.
And they're no slouch. They've won nearly 30 games this year.
Yeah,
they only have a handful of losses.
I'm just shocked, man, because that's Westlake's best regular season in history.
No, I mean, there's a reason why I was high on him going in the season, and obviously with KJ Adams, the player you mentioned before, coming back next year, obviously the expectations will be high once again. But I mean, this was their earliest loss in a number of years, I believe, since Coach Lucero took over part of the 2015-2016 season. So yeah, it was a huge surprise. I mean, last year they made it to the regional quarterfinals, which would have been early this week, but. There's always next year, but there's also a lot of other area teams that are still fighting, on in the same region, in the same district. Austin Anderson will be taking on San Antonio Brandeis in the third round of the playoffs. You also have Converse Judson taking on San Antonio Warren. Obviously, Warren's the team that beat Westlake. And on the so that's Region 4.
So before you move on really quickly, Judson, I would say, poses a solid threat, but seeing what Warren was able to do against Westlake, did Warren use all their fuel to beat Westlake?
I think so.
You think so?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, they're going to run into other very good San Antonio area programs. I mean, whether it's Judson, Brandeis is great. Mm-hmm. I mean, Brandeis is a really good team. They have a lot of talent this year. I don't think that they can get all the way to the state Final Four. And, I mean, I think coming off of not only a double overtime victory against a team that you weren't favored against, but, now you have to go you have to build off of that.
Yeah.
And, these games come quick, especially this week. You got 3 regional games to win to make it to next week. And that's hard.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier, and that's probably the hardest game they'll play, but there's got to be enough left in the tank, and boy, they got a hard road.
Absolutely. And then, obviously, in Region 2, we have a 13-6A battle between Roanoke Westwood and Austin Vandegrift. I was wrong. I thought Westlake would go further than Vandegrift. I thought Westlake would still be playing this week, as many other people did as well.
Vandegrift had a tremendous season in the regular season as well. I think they rivaled Westlake in terms of losses.
They were 2 of the top winning percentages in the state, not just this area.
I want to say maybe Vandegrift had 2 losses as well.
Yeah, so, definitely a lot to look forward to. I know Manor boys basketball, they're still in the mix. That's obviously in 5A. There's a lot to still be
How about
excited about.
That was 6A.
No, I said in 5A there's still action. I mean, Manor is taking on Huntsville this week. So definitely keep an eye on the Mustangs after the run that they made in 2018-2019.
And I got to throw out a word about my Thunderbirds, my Wagner Thunderbirds. They're my ride or die. They play Tivy. They'll win.
Oh, yeah.
But I said that last week about Westlake. So I think producer Josh was asking about 4A.
Yeah, who's still in 4A?
Hey! That's what he was going for, man. Yeah.
Well, they might.
But back to 5A. I mean, Hutto's still in it.
By the time the show comes out, they may not be though, because the show comes out Wednesday. They'll have played on Tuesday, playing against Port Isabel. So I think the one thing, my brother, I think we've talked about before, he coaches for Pleasanton, and it's like they've been having to travel at least 3 hours per game so far in the playoffs. So I wonder if that, because now they Devine and Port Isabel where they played, and I was like, let's go Devine, because Devine's right there in San Antonio, so much shorter travel. But no, they're going up to Kingsville to play now.
Ooh,
and then if they win that, they basically go. I think to A&M Kingsville is where the regional finals are. That they have to go to. So lots of traveling.
So in basketball, is it kind of like baseball where you flip for a head-to-head, or I know in baseball you flip for a series or a single game elimination, and then you also flip for kind of the location?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's like, they're not going to be like, oh, come on, Port Isabel, you come up to San Antonio. It's well, no, we're going to find a location kind of, halfway. So, but
the other 5A matchup that we haven't mentioned, obviously in the same region as Wagner and Kerrville Tivy, is San Antonio Harlan and San Antonio Southside. So a lot of San Antonio area teams left, not as much Austin area, but you do have Austin Anderson. So props to the Trojans for getting to that point.
That game on VYPE Live, by the way, and then Vandegrift Westwood will also be on VYPE Live. I think those are the only 2. Let's see, Give me a second here. I'll tell you all the ones coming up on our VYPE Live network here. So let's see. Liberty Hill and Bernie are also going to be on VYPE Live. And that is it.
There you go. That's the list. Hey, so that's our Wednesday show, guys. We've now done a Tuesday show and a Wednesday show. You, of course, caught our rapid fire on Monday. And this Thursday, we have a From the Bench episode featuring the same person as our rapid fire, Sierra Zapata, in our From the Bench. And Thomas, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Do we want to mention our pick'ems, which will be our Friday show?
Yeah, that'll be Friday.
What games we're planning to talk about?
I mean, we can kind of hold that off till Friday.
You want to hold that off till Friday?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well,
we'll keep y'all waiting.
Yeah, it's a little
Bringing
teaser.
y'all back.
So you know that there's some games coming. We obviously did talk about one game, which would be the Judson game. So we've already teased that one. So if anything, you're ready to hear about the Judson girls facing Duncanville. So we'll come back to this and see y'all tomorrow. Thomas, you want to get us out of here?
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed today's program, you should have. Definitely follow us on social media, VYPE Texas on Facebook and Instagram, VYPE ATX, VYPE SATX locally on Twitter. Also, you can follow me on all three of those platforms at TexNation.
You can follow me on Twitter at Evan_UT.
You're a Twitter man.
I'm a Twitter man, and that's where I post the show. So you're looking for a quick, easy way to find the link, follow me on Twitter.
You can follow me on social media at JoshWack13. But more importantly, you can follow VYPU. VYPU on Twitter is VYPU_A, and VYPU on Instagram is VYPU. Follow them for our daily, content that we post in regards to our ambassadors.
And don't forget to sign up for VYPE Campus, get extra coverage for your school and school district, and go check out VYPE.com for daily sports coverage across the great state of Texas. We'll talk to you tomorrow and Friday. Beyer and Producer Josh signing off.